Hello, everybody. I'm back. I am so excited to be with you today. It's been way too long, and I sure have missed you all. Before we get into today's project, I just want to thank you for the lovely cards, for the Facebook comments wishing my husband and I well. It meant the world to both of us. And he's home, he's doing well, finally at a point where he shoos me out of the room if I've been in there too long. And so I thought today would be a great day to get back in the saddle and continue on with our Saturday Anything Goes series. And so that's what we're all about today. Now, there may be snow in the forecast for us here in Atlanta for next week, but I'm thinking spring. And I have two suites that we're going to showcase for today's project that I think you're really, really going to like. If you've been out going through Pinterest, looking at YouTube videos, no doubt you've seen some wonderful cards made with each of these suites. But I thought we'd combine them today so that you can see how different components work well together from what Stampin' Up! Has put together for our occasions catalog. The two suites we're going to be talking about are Butterfly Gala, and I have to tell you, this is the very, 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 very first thing that I bought after seeing it at Onstage. I love butterflies, and we actually have two stamp sets. Beauty Abounds is the other one that has butterflies. And Beauty Abounds has dies that go with it, whereas the Butterfly Gala we're using today has a punch that we're going to be using to punch out some lovely butterflies. And then the other suite we're going to use is Wonderful Romance, and it has just such lovely, lovely images. But we're going to do a twist. The only stamp we're going to use out of this set is the sentiment stamp, because part of this suite is the DSP, and it is absolutely gorgeous. And I've got a little piece of it here for you. This is what we're going to be using in our project today. But there are so many lovely patterns in the DSP, and two of them are vellum. I have this a piece of white cardstock behind it, but as you can see, it is vellum, and it's just beautiful. So that's what we're going to be working with today. We'll also use I've used our new rectangle stitch dies. Thank you, Stampin' Up! For coming out with those. They are just so versatile. And so I've pre-cut some pieces using the rectangle dies as well. Before we get started though, one thing I wanted to show you about Wonderful Romance is the die set, because I actually like the dies probably even more than I do the stamp set, which is saying a lot because I love the stamp set. Let me just open this up. This is how I store my dies. I find I forget to use them if I don't have them stored with the actual stamp set. But this is the die I want to talk about right here. Now you have dies that will cut out all of the images, and you also have this oval die that's really great for sentiment strips. But this die is amazing because it's a border die. It will cut out just the border section here, and then also the little lattice type design you see. And so that you can tell what I'm talking about, I had previously made a card this week, and this is what it looks like. So as you can see, that die alone can really add a lot of versatility to the card designs that you can come up with. It's just beautiful. So I did want to point that out about the dies. All right, let me put this back before I forget it, and we'll get started on today's card. Hello, Amy. Thank you so much for joining this afternoon. Hi, Vivian. Oh my gosh, so good to see you. All right, so let's bring out our goodie bag. As you know, I like to try and get as much stuff pre-done as possible so that the videos don't run an hour long. And this one's going to be pretty simple. We'll still do some stamping, and I am going to demonstrate the butterflies as well. But basically, this is going to be our card. I have started with a base of Pear Pizzazz, and our colors today are taken directly from the DSP. So we're going to be using Pear Pizzazz and Fresh Fig, and then also Petal Pink, I think. Yep, Petal Pink. And I could have used a white card base, and that just looks very crisp and very lovely, but I wanted something soft. And spring to me is all about soft pastel colors. The Pear Pizzazz card base backing that vellum, I thought just really brought out how delicate and soft all of this is. And I went ahead, and I'm stingy because I love this vellum so much that I cut a rectangle out of the middle of it so that I could use that on a different card panel, because we're going to be covering the center up. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Since Fresh Fig is one of our colors, I did a matte of Fresh Fig, and you can see that's going to cover up the hole in the center there. And then I cut with the rectangle stitched die another vellum piece, and actually I used this from, that was part of what I cut out in the center, so I could reuse it on the front. But just laying it on top of the Fresh Fig, pretty dark, so I just went ahead and cut a matching piece of Whisper White. That's going to make that center panel just pop and really brings out the colors even more than you can see against the Pear Pizzazz background. And because I cut this out of the main piece, or the bigger piece of vellum, if you look right here, you can see that the pattern continues. So it almost just looks like you popped it up. And I know that there is a word for that technique, but it escapes me right now. However, I just want to make sure when I'm laying this down that I lay it down so that the pattern is repeated. Although if you were to forget and, or didn't even have a repeating pattern, that would look good too. And then we're going to have our sentiment will be stamped on there. And then I have a couple of butterflies. And this is kind of a bit of a dilemma, I was thinking, because part of the paper you can get in the butterfly suite has DSP that already has the butterflies stamped and colored in for you, and you can just use the butterfly punch to punch them out. And I really love how it looks, but my colors are not exact. So in other words, instead of Fresh Fig, this is Highland Heather, and instead of Petal Pink, that is, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to think of it, Calypso Coral. So the colors don't exactly match, but because of the fact that I've got the first piece of vellum on the Pear Pizzazz and the second piece of vellum on Whisper White, the colors change slightly between them, and so I may be able to get away with using that stamped butterfly. I also went ahead, and I'm going to show you how you can stamp the image yourself, and it's a two-step stamping, so you can have different colors for the wings. So I did one of those as well to see which one do I like better, or maybe I'll just use both of them. I don't know. We'll see when we get there. Let's go ahead and start putting this together though, and then we'll get on to our stamping. There's just a few things I want to do first, and one of those is get this vellum secured to my card base. Now, if you've worked with vellum before, you know that adhesives tend to show through the vellum. So this was kind of another challenge I had to overcome. How am I going to attach the vellum without you being able to see the adhesive? Well, that mat that I cut out of the Fresh Fig is just a little bit larger than the opening. My plan is just to run a thin bead of liquid glue around the inside there and adhere that. And that way this panel is then going to hide the adhesive. And of course, I'll glue this whole thing down. So yes, the edges won't be adhered, but there's going to be enough pressure put on it from the mat that I'm not worried about it flopping open. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And I'm going to use a really high-tech way of making sure I get the glue where I want. I'm going to take a paper clip, don't laugh, and once I get my vellum lined up exactly where I want it, which is going to be right there, I'm actually going to paper clip my vellum to my card base so that it doesn't move. And now I'll take my liquid glue, and as I said, I am going to run just the thinnest bead and just kind of drag it along here along the edge. And I'll go up as far as I can. Remember, I've got the top paper clip down. But just a thin bead. And then I'm going to lay it down, press that in place, and I have a couple seconds here that I can wiggle it around if I need to. And now what I'll do is remove my paper clip carefully and do it from the opposite side. So I'll paper clip that down, and now I can lift up the loose part and again just run a thin bead of glue right along that cut edge where the opening is. And then press it down into place. So there's my little tip for you today on how you can get vellum adhered without it showing through. Now on this pattern, it really doesn't show through too badly, but still I know if I glued the whole thing, you would definitely be able to see it. So let's just make sure that that's straight down. And then I've got the mat here, and my next decision is going to be, am I going to pop this whole panel up, including the matted piece, or do I want to glue the mat straight down and then pop up just this center piece like that? And I really thought that looked good. Plus, again, I wanted to make sure that this mat is putting enough pressure down to make sure my vellum stays in place. Hello, Patricia. Thanks. It does look lovely on the vellum. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just glue down, again, using my multi-purpose liquid glue, the mat. And I can make sure I have good adhesion so nothing flops up. And I love using my liquid glue because it does give you just that little bit of extra time. With that opening, I want to make sure you can't see any of the Pear Pizzazz card base showing through. All right, so that's what we have so far. Doesn't look like too much yet, but we're going to get there. Now, I am matting, or backing, I should say, the vellum with the Whisper White because I really did love the way that looked. Before I glue this down, though, I want to show you something. Because I was just playing around with, did I want that stark of a color behind it, or did I want something softer? And I pulled out several of the sheets of that DSP. And I even played around with pattern on pattern because there's this lovely leaf pattern in there. And I thought, what would that look like if I laid that down? And you know what? It's really pretty and very interesting. kind of hard to see in this light, but it gives it added depth and dimension. And then I thought, well, pink would be pretty. Look at how it completely changes the whole look of it. And that was lovely. But you know, with our card base of Pear Pizzazz and mostly green in here, I thought, no, that's probably not the way to go for this card. But you know what? I am going to try that on another one. But let me show you a really interesting one, and that's this wood grain. So here it is against the white, because I want you to see the difference. So there it is against the white. Look what happens when I put it against the creaminess of this wood grain. Again, it gives it a completely different look. So don't think that just because you have a sheet of patterned vellum, it means that you always have to put it on a solid color of cardstock. Play around with it. See what you think looks good. In this case, though, I am going to stick with my Whisper White. And so I need to attach this. But remember, if I just glue this down, you're going to be able to see the adhesive. So how am I going to work with that? Well, that's where my sentiment and butterflies come in, because that is going to give me spots where the vellum is hidden, and I'll be able to use those to glue this whole panel down. All right, so let's just work on our sentiment. There is a truly lovely sentiment in Wonderful Romance. You are the best thing I never knew I needed. And I just fell in love with that. So that's the sentiment that we're going to use for the front of our card. And I'm going to bring out my Stamparatus, because since I've already pre-cut my circle, it'd be kind of hard to line everything up and without using a magnet. So I'm just going to set this in here and use my magnet at the very, very top. And because this is a cling mount, this is our brand new cling stamps. So let me see if I can pull a block over here. Remember how if you put the labels on our old rubber stamps that they wouldn't stick? Look at that. No problems at all. So when you get your new stamp sets, I highly recommend that you put those labels on. And with a sentiment like this, I need that label because I need to be able to line it up. Oh, but you know what? I have to take my foam mat out, since this is a rubber stamp. There we go. I'm just going to line this up on here. And I tossed around whether I wanted to use Fresh Fig for the front, but I thought Fresh Fig is a really strong color, and I think I have enough Fresh Fig going on in here. I'm going to go ahead and use some Versafine ink. I thought black would just help it stand out. You certainly could use Memento as well. I just happened to grab this one. So I've got that inked up well. And I especially recommend using your Stamparatus if it's the very first time you're using a stamp, especially if it's photopolymer, because sometimes they don't stamp perfectly the first time you use them. That one did. I'm going to carefully take and put this aside for a moment. If you use your Versafine black ink, it does take a moment to dry. I can't tell you how many times I have smudged a sentiment because I didn't wait 5 or 10 seconds for that ink to dry. So just be aware of that. Okay. So we've got our sentiment done. The next thing is I wanted to show you how I did my butterfly. And I'm still toying with, do I want to use this one or not? And if I don't, I'm going to need a second butterfly. So that's the next thing that we're going to do, is to work on our butterfly. Let's see, I have a piece of scrap Whisper White here. And we do have the punch to punch out our butterflies. And one trick I will tell you is, if I bring it over here, you need to make sure, if you can see, here's the bottom of the butterfly right there. So you want to have just a small amount of cardstock below your butterfly so that you can easily cut it out. The other thing you might notice is there's two. You got a large butterfly and a small butterfly, and your stamp actually comes that way. So this is what it looks like. I have done stamp surgery on mine, I will admit, because I wanted to use my little butterfly, but because of where I did that, I can very easily line my butterflies back up just by where I took it off at the rubber, so that I can use my punch if I am stamping both of those. All right. And I stamped my image on this one in Fresh Fig, so I'm going to continue with that. I'm just going to leave it on the block since I have it there. And I'll ink it up really well because my Fresh Fig is a little bit dry. Like I said, you want to not have too much cardstock below your butterfly so that you can easily punch it out. Now I could have taken my little butterfly off since I probably won't use it in this, but I just went ahead and left it in. Now, as you can see, this did not stamp evenly. Anybody guess why? I forgot to put my foam mat back in. So let's do that. Always have to remember, if you're using photopolymer, you need that extra cushioning. So let me just slide that in quickly. Luckily, we have two sides to the paper, so I could have continued on that one, but we'll just do it brand new. And let's try that again. Now, if I had actually mounted these on my Stamparatus, I wouldn't have to do that. I could have just re-inked. But since I'm not using the Stamparatus for actually stamping this, we'll just do it this way. There we go. So that's the main outline of our butterfly, and that's really pretty, but I did want to bring in some of the Petal Pink that is in the vellum right there. There is a stamp that is the fill-in for the wings right here. And so I'm going to ink that up in the Petal Pink. Pardon my head if it gets in the way. It's pretty easy to see through your photopolymer and get it lined up. But even if you go a little outside the line, no worries. That just makes it look more artistic. Okay, so there we have our butterfly. There is a body to the butterfly, and I will be using it. But I found it's much easier to make sure it's lined up correctly if I wait until after I have punched out my butterfly. I know, it seems kind of counterintuitive, but trust me, it does work better that way. So let's bring in our punch and just line everything up. And as you can see, it lines up really easily. And now I've got the large butterfly, and I can save that small butterfly to use on a different project. Okay, let's go ahead and do the body. You could just as easily, because there is the outline of the body there, bring in your black Stampin' Write marker if you just wanted to quickly color it in yourself. But I've got the little body here, so I might as well use it. Now, a little hard to see here. Let me bring back in the stamp pad. I mean the stamp case. You can tell which way to stamp the body because it's a little bit thicker at the top end than it is at the bottom end. So just remember that. So my thicker one is up at the top here. And again, pardon my head if it gets in the way. I'm just going to stamp that down. And now I've got the body. Okay. I think that's all the stamping that we need to do. But you know what? I love the little accent stamps that come with most of our stamp sets. And this has a little bitty flower. And I think I'm going to stamp a couple of little flowers since I have room. And do I want to, I think I'll do them in the Petal Pink just because, well, but we've got fresh fig too. Maybe I'll do one of each. So just ink that up. And I'm just going to put a couple. So I've got one there. And then let's do one in our fresh fig. Hey, MJ. MJ is my nephew. Good to see you. Okay. So just a couple. And if you've got your in color markers, you certainly can go in and you can color in if you so desire. And I'm just going to loosely do that. Make it look a little artistic. And I don't have my Petal Pink, but you know what? I've got powder pink. So we're just going to pretend that's going to work for this. All right. Just a little something extra. It's those small details that sometimes really make your card stand out. I think we're ready to put everything together now. So let me get my stamparatus out of the way there and bring everything in. Better close up my stamp pads before I get in trouble. Okay, so as I mentioned, and here I just want to double check because remember, I've got a directional pattern and I'm trying to match it up because I cut it out of the center. So this is right way up. My sentiment is going to go there, and that leaves me room for my butterflies. So let's go ahead and I'm going to straight glue down my sentiment. And no, I haven't attached the vellum to the white backing yet. Just using that because it's easier for me to see. All right, now I can take and I can put glue over where I've got that. And now that piece of vellum is attached to the backing. And remember, I'm putting butterflies on, so I'll also be able to go in and stick a glue dot or something under that as well. But let's pop this up on some dimensionals. I remember to bring them in here. There they are. Because I do want just some added depth to this. And I'm going to put a couple extra to make sure it doesn't buckle. Can never use too many dimensionals. I hope you all are having a good Saturday. The sun's out right now. I was out in the yard yesterday, and the daffodils are coming up. As a matter of fact, some of them already have bud heads on them. Some of my tulips are poking through the ground, and my narcissus is even starting to come up. So all of this rain will be good for the spring flowers anyway. All right, I'm just lining that up, trying to ensure that I have an equal border all the way around. Now, as you can see, this vellum here is flopping up. That's going to bug me. So we'll see what we can do about that with our butterflies. So that's our next decision, butterflies. How many? And do I want to use this one? I always like to bend my wings up a bit. So we could put one there. And let's see this one, I think. I like having one right about there. And then do I want a third one down here? That seems like overkill to me. What about one of these smaller ones? And I don't even like that, but you know what I can do? I can take and put an enamel dot or an epoxy heart or something down there, and that will give me room underneath to put a little dab of glue. So I think we're going to go ahead and go with this. Now for my butterflies, just going to use some liquid glue, and because I bent up my wings, that gives me an area where I can put my glue. If you're not going to be mailing this, you can put a dimensional under the wings, and that will help prop it up. But I'm going to be mailing this, so I will need it to flatten out. So I'm not going to put dimensionals on it. And then let's do one right up here. Just give it a second for that glue to really make contact. So I'm liking that so far, but let's bring out our embellishment box. Because you know, even though we say soft, it still can use a little bling. Let's see what we've got here. We can use rhinestones. Not quite sure about that. We've got little pearls. Oh, we have these wonderful new flowers. Let's see if we have a color in this that might go. No, I'm not seeing anything in here that really would coordinate with that. We have our epoxy drops, and those can be colored, by the way. But you know, we've got these silver and gold pearls, and I really do like those. And we could probably get away with the pink on the designer pearls. But you know what? I'm thinking it's going to be the silver pearls. You certainly could take plain white pearls and you could color them in with your blends or your Stampin' Write marker. And I'm just pulling out my pokey tool here. And now let's see if we want, do we want gold? Gold is really, really pretty. Or do we want the silver? I'm thinking the gold, because there's some warm colors in here. So we'll just continue that. And I think I'm going to put one right here in the middle of that fig flower. And I also like it in the pink one. And then let's put one more right down here, because remember, that's where my flapping's going on. So now I'll be able to put just a tiny dab of glue right there, or even a mini glue dot. I think the mini glue dots are even a little big. So I'm going to carefully put just a little teeny, come on. There we go. Just a teeny bit and hold it down. So remember those little tricks when you're working with vellum. Find areas that you can hide your adhesive behind. And embellishments are a perfect way to do that. All right, so that's the front of our card. I'm really liking that. We could take, let's see, I don't have my Winkasilla out here with me, but you certainly could color in the butterfly wings with a little bit of Wink of Stella as well. Now that's the outside, but how are we doing for time? Pretty good. Let's do the inside really quick, because we don't want to have a naked card, do we? So let me see if I can find my inside panel is right here. And there's another stamp set that I fell in love with, but this one is strictly sentiments. And it's called Part of My Story. Since we're using You Are the Best Thing I Never Knew I Needed, I thought I'm so glad you're a part of my story would be perfect for the inside. So let me just pop that one out. I haven't put my stickers on this yet. And bring my Stamparatus in. Take out my pad. Y'all, I somehow ended up with 2 Stamparatuses. I guess I ordered one and then I forgot I ordered it and ordered another one. And I swear there are days when I think I'm just going to have one set up for photopolymer and one set up for the cling stamp, so I don't have to keep remembering to take that foam pad out. But there we go. And I'll put this in the center of the card. Since I don't have my label on, I want to try to make sure that it is as straight as possible, and it's nowhere near. So let me just straighten that up. And for the inside, I'm going to use the Fresh Fig. So we'll ink that up and press it down. Like I said, my pad's pretty dry, so give it an extra second to absorb. Oh, look at how beautiful that is. The font is just gorgeous on it. So we've got our inside sentiment, but you know, we got to add a little bit of stamping just to make it as pretty on the inside as it is on the outside. So for that, you know what? Maybe I'll just bring in my leftover butterfly. And I think that's what I'm going to do. Can never have too many butterflies. And this one I will glue straight down, obviously, because card's going to fold flat. So I can put adhesive all over the wings. Oh, I'm really, really loving that sentiment, y'all. Isn't it amazing how these little, and I think this was actually one of our Prize Patrol gifts at On Stage. So, but I just adore that sentiment. All right, all we have left to do is put this on the inside. For a minute there, I almost had a heart attack. I thought I put my card together upside down. How many of you have done that before? All right, but there we have it. There's a beautiful spring card that, you know what, could also be used as a Valentine card, because let's face it, the sentiments that we used are all about love. I hope that you will consider getting both of the suites, the Forever Lovely and the Butterfly Gala, because as you can see together, they make just beautiful, soft cards. And that vellum is a knockout. All right, well, that's our card for today. Thanks again, everybody, for joining in. I'm so happy that I got to talk with all of you this afternoon. I don't know if I'll be able to put the Tuesday night series back on just yet. Our weeks are pretty filled up with doctor's appointments and stuff, but we will definitely continue on with the Saturday Anything Goes series next Saturday. I'll have the instructions uploaded to YouTube later on today, and then it'll also be on my blog, which is cardsbywinnie.wordpress.com. If you have any questions at all or need any supplies, please let me know. Thanks, and have a blessed rest of your day. Bye-bye now.